Welcome to the Lightforge podcast. This is Adwigta.
This is Merps. Hello. I am back. None of you will notice this because it doesn't affect the sound quality. It doesn't affect anything.
The sound quality is better. I've been telling you this. The sound quality is better.
Probably. I think I just optimized it better in terms of the settings. But once again, my computer has issues. So if you guys, for some reason, wanted to see my Monday streams, I'm going to guess that I will be out of commission for at least like a month and a week. Something like that. That's my guess right now. I know we just got them started back up, but my computer is a fried toaster, so that will not be possible. I am sorry.
This is the most terrible saga. We're talking about, like, we hope that what they did was nothing. Because if they had already fixed it, and now the same issue is happening again, I don't know how they're going to fix it again. Because they're not going to replace every part of the computer and just give you a whole new computer. So, and the warranty period is about to end. Like, this is still under the warranty period, but after this one, if it breaks again, it's coming out of our own pockets. I mean, not that this isn't. It still costs almost $100 just to send it over there and pack it and ship it and all that stuff.
Yep.
All right. Computer problems. Okay. So, let's talk about stuff that's happened in the arena. We're going to not talk about Battlegrounds again. And we'll talk about Battlegrounds hopefully next week. But stuff keeps happening in the arena. Like, we thought that with the balancing changes, we would just talk about that. We played some games in the meta. It wasn't super different. It was a little bit better. We saw, like, the soft touch that the dev team has chosen to do for their first balancing, and we're like, okay, when are you gonna touch this again? Because clearly it's not at the end state, right? Like, everything was in a good direction. The top is great. But the bottom clearly still needs work, and stuff is going to happen again. But before, like, people even, like, voice those thoughts, besides an initial thing, like, once people even figured out the meta, before the meta even settled, a new patch came out. Patch 23.2.2. And it has a crap ton of buffs and nerfs to cards. And most of those cards are in the arena meta. And a good deal of them actually do matter. So the meta shifted again, and now you have Rogue at 53.8% win rate. So whenever the next adjustments are happening, you can bet that it's going to hit Rogue, because Druid, which was at 52.8, I think, is now 52.5, so pretty much the same, but it went down a tiny bit. Probably just because rogues are better now, so something's got to push it down. Demon Hunters went all the way down to 51%. It used to be at 52.2 or 3. And when I say used to, I mean after the adjustments. Like, basically right before they did this patch is where Demon Hunters were at 52.3%. And now they're at 51%, which is below Paladin at 52%. Warlock is now up to, it's been rising. The adjustments helped it, and then these card changes are also helping it. It's up to 48.7% win rate now, which makes it like a totally normal pickable class. It's even above Mage, which is at 48%, which is still a totally playable class. Like, this is such a narrow range. I've said this before, that the absolute ideal that you can possibly hope for these class balances is to hit 52.5%. And all of these and not go below 47.5%. And you have 6 out of the 10 classes in that range, and only one class is above it, because being on top is way more dangerous than being on the bottom. And the class on top is Rogue, which is only like 1.3% above the 52.5%. So it's all looking very good numbers-wise.
Yep. I mean, yeah. If you don't care about warriors at all, sure.
If you ignore 3 of the classes completely.
Well, look. Priest made it above 41%, right? I think they are right now.
They're almost 42.
They're almost 42. So look, Hunter is at 39%, which is still a few percentages better. It's really warrior that pretty much didn't move at all. Yeah. Now, we talked about it last week. We we felt like there didn't need to be sweeping changes. I understand some people are frustrated that there aren't sweeping changes because let's face it, whenever there has historically been an adjustment, it is huge.
Mm-hmm.
The first class usually goes to at least a mid-low tier class, and oftentimes it just flips.
Mm-hmm.
Like the best class is at the very bottom. How many times did we flip-flop between demon hunters being at the very top to the very bottom to the very top to the very bottom? That was like a movement about, I don't know, 2 years ago. That just like kind of flip-flop back and forth. So that's what we're used to. We're not used to something a little more subtle like this. Priest by the numbers have improved some, but warriors are still dumpster tier. Anytime you see like a 36% win class, that just means it is complete dumpster tier. So has the meta been helped overall? Sure. It's been mixed up a little bit, right? Rogue is very, very strong right now.
Compared to the very beginning before the Miracle Growth nerf. Like Druid was 55% basically, and now it's 52.5. So that's a huge difference. Now, you know, a lot of it is not due to the due to the adjustments itself, but there has been a very noticeable difference on the top. I am way less frustrated playing against Druids now than I used to be.
Yeah, and look, Rogue being introduced up there, that's kind of a new thing. Priests and really not having three classes at 37%. Is a little bit better, and that's kind of what we're hoping for. In terms of the minimum we want to see from the meta, and what we're really hoping for, which we won't know and we won't be able to really judge or process for, I would say, like at least a year, is exactly how much the devs seem to learn from this. Because remember, this is a new team. This is not Tianding with the micro adjust doing it whatever way Tianding wanted to do it. Matt London is trying to set up a new system, and this is the very first time that we see them implementing something.
Yep.
We obviously don't know what new algorithm, what new kind of considerations, priorities, philosophies they have in place, but we're hoping that whatever they did this time, which was fine, you know, it didn't hurt the meta, I don't think. Any complaints are sort of like, it's not new enough. I get that. I understand. Like you're tired of seeing Druid, you're tired of seeing Paladins, that's fine. You want to see more warriors and hunters and priests, I get it. But if this is a valuable lesson for the devs, that's fantastic. And I'm just hoping that we can build upon this for the next change, whenever that might be. Probably not until after the mini set comes out, though.
Yeah, just the timing. You know what? I think here's what I think. I think that they're going to push out another round of balance changes just for the arena, and they're going to do it like a week or like a week and a half before the mini set releases, just to gather data. Not to like make arena better for a week and a half. Like maybe it will, right? Maybe it won't, but I think there's no way, like, they have to look at it. Like, if I'm a dev and I just did the changes, right, and I'm looking at my results, I have to be happy with what's happening at the top. And I have to be not happy, or at least not thrilled, with what's happening at the bottom. Because you tried to solve a problem, you knew that you were going, like, you know, in small steps, and what you've learned from this is that you can go with a little bit bigger steps, and for the classes at the bottoms, you need to do something to make a lot bigger of a change. Because, like, Hunter's 39% now, but they got a couple cards nerfed. And we'll go over that in a bit. But before the nerfs, Hunter was hitting 40%. Like, barely reaching over 40%. But it was like, it was happening. So they did bring Hunter up from, like, 36% or 37 or whatever, all the way up to 40. So, like, it did have an impact. But they're trying to bring Hunter to, like, at least 48, right? So they need to push things up. So I think right before a giant rotation, especially when a lot of the community, especially the hardcore community, the people who may still be playing Arena during the time right before a meta change, they're looking for something potentially new and spicy. So I think you take a risk. Now's when you swing, because the consequences are so low. And if you flip the meta, oh well, right? Weren't people asking to have the meta flipped? Wasn't that one of the complaints with with what the result of the first one is? And in that way, you kind of test out your moves, right? You test out your like what happens when you move things in different ways because they've tested out the small movement. Like this next one, I would just go for it if I were them, right? Like I would just we talked about this on the last podcast where you have to balance towards 47%, if not 46%, if your lowest class is at 35%. Because otherwise you're never going to get the classes balanced without making the lower class that was at 36% totally like terrible and toxic for the meta by bumping up their best cards by like, 3 times the offering rate or some ridiculous stuff. So like hopefully they do something like that. But even if they don't and do something else, like they got to go bigger. Like whatever was happening last time, they got to do more than double it this time. Like, and I don't mean like they did like 1 unit last time, they have to do 2 units this time. Like they did 1 unit last time, they got to do 3 units this time for 4 units altogether, right? Like that's the kind of movement that you want to see. And if it goes overboard, it's fine.
Just be a little bit more bold next time. I understand because part of the reason that you have to go with a slight touch at first, it's just like when you're learning anything in life. If you make a dramatic change and something happens, it's much tougher for you to judge exactly what happened.
Yep.
And it's the more things you touch, the tougher it is for you to judge the effects of that as well. So this, I think what they did this time was purposefully for their own education experience small. And that would be great if they did touch it. Like you said, just small changes once again, maybe like in a pretty short period of time, like a week before the mini set comes out or something. And that could also just be to not just change it, but for them to gather more experience because they know that the first change after the mini set kind of has to be good. I'm
Yeah.
pretty excited. And also, Matt London tweeted at you.
Matt London did tweet at me. Matt London gave me some compliments, and I'm very happy with compliments. And I gave Matt London some. I think I was responding to. Who was I responding to? I was responding to a longtime viewer and I think streamer. But yeah, and I was just saying that the team was doing a good job with these changes. So it's good. Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate everything the team is doing. Right, like Matt London's the face and the lead of the team, but also everybody else on the team who's working on the arena. Like they have a team now. Remember before, like 3 years ago or whatever, we used to joke that it was like a quarter of one guy's job to like do stuff to the arena sometimes. And then it turned out to be true, and it was Tian Ding who was like the algorithm guy, right? Who was not like it was not like a game developer. Like there's different types of game developer, right? Obviously, what Tian Ding does is hyper important, to Blizzard, and with his specialty, he probably has more of an impact than a meat and potatoes game designer. But they're coming at the issue from different angles, and now. Yeah, and now you have a whole team, which includes all sorts of different people, right? Which includes all sorts of different expertise, all sorts of different opinions, and you have a lead who is Matt London, who is a game designer, by at least recent trade, and it's going to come together into this more, I think, this more cohesive philosophy, but also this like it seems like they have 10 times the manpower that they used to have on the arena, even though arena is only one out of like the 6 things that this team does.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited. Just the fact that they are doing arena write-ups now. Have they ever written about the arena?
They have. It's not like they've never done it. But the one is they never really promise anything in the future when they're writing it, because I think they know that they may say like, we're open to or we're considering doing it, but here they're kind of like Matt London's been pretty blunt about it. He's like, we're going to be doing more. Like, it's not specific, but directionally it's going to, like, stuff is going to happen, right? And it's just, yeah, I mean, they've definitely written something about the arena before. It has been a while, though, because they kind of put arena on a strategic pause, and then they unpaused it, but they didn't really do anything. They just kind of like, I guess, were figuring out what to do internally, and now we're actually seeing like steps being taken. You know, a team was formed, responsibilities are given out.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, we're very excited about what's going to happen in the arena, and we know that it's going to take a long time for the big stuff to get there, whatever big stuff might be. But in the meantime, Matt London has promised more frequent and quicker balance changes, and you know, we've seen the first one, and it like I was very impressed with the restraint that was shown, as well as with the effects. All effects were positive, you know, the follow up can go into a different way, and then I think you give it a couple of reps, and then you should be starting to get they should start to get a good idea of what all the pieces are to move, and then it's just about speed, right? And then the next thing that'll be very nice is, hey, this patch has to come out, you know, not 2 weeks after the meta happens. You have data after 3 days. Historically, there was one time where they did do a balance patch 3 days after release, and it was wonderful. And it was, I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it solved a lot of problems. And they need to do that every time.
They actually promised in the blog post that they will respond faster,
yep.
right?
Literally, well, okay, they said they'll respond faster, but they responded this time like 2.5 weeks in. So faster doesn't mean super fast necessarily.
No, but just having this, it's sort of like, because that puts you out there,
yes,
right?
Yes, and that is something that they haven't done before.
Yeah, they don't promise anything, and like that was also one of those like, okay, we won't even mention arena. Like whenever something is changed, right? Like arena won't even be mentioned. So to me, like it's crazy that I'm saying that that's crazy. But for arena, that sounds crazy. Yeah.
Yep, that's arena. So yeah, for going back to the changes, let's go over what changes actually happened to the cards, just so you guys aren't like you should go read the patch notes. It's actually quite a number of cards. We're gonna gloss over like half of them because they either don't have arena impact or they're not really in the arena, but they're just good to know. And you'll see why. Like for example, Demon Hunter got knocked down quite significantly, and you'll see why Rogue got boosted up and Warlock got boosted up. One of the major changes in this patch that I think is underappreciated is that between the micro adjusts that just happened in the arena and this balance patch, Warlock's a real class now. Like Warlock used to be like, oh, it wasn't sub 40%, but it was like 43 or something. That's also like, to me, they're equally unplayable. Like I don't want to play them because I know I'll be at such a severe disadvantage. So now Warlock is a totally legitimately playable class. So you've just added one class to your roster in addition to switching the top class down to number 2 and the old top number 2 class down to number 4. Like you don't have to move the top class to number 8 or number 9 or number 10. That is not necessarily good balancing. That's not even usually good balancing. Like that's just like everybody gets their shot at being number 1. Like that's bad. You don't want everybody to get their shot at being number 1. You want everybody to be as close as possible. So if almost always the top classes go down to the bottom, that actually means you're balancing in a crappy way. It means you're making sure the top classes aren't in the top anymore, just for the sake of diversity, rather than making a legitimate attempt to move everything to the middle. In which case, the top class will be like still at the top half the time and like below median the other half the time, and overall the band will be slimmer. Anyway, okay. First card that they changed is Drekthar. That's a legendary and is not in the arena, I think. Maybe it is in the arena, but it doesn't matter. It's a 4-mana 4/4.
Yeah, you will not see it. Like you don't see it often. It can like you can sometimes see it like generated, but you really don't see it.
Okay, but yeah, it's a legendary. It says, it used to say if this costs more than it's 4-mana card. If this costs more than every minion in your deck, summon 2 of them, and now you only summon 1 of them. Some constructive balancing issues. But the more interesting stuff is happening here. So here's a Demon Hunter nerf. Multi-Strike. What used to be 1 mana is now 2 mana. This is the card that gives your hero plus 2 attack. And it gives you an extra attack on the turn. And it was a very good arena card. It wasn't like a super busted arena card, but it was very good. And this got nerfed to be just like an okay card. Like, it's still, you would still draft it. This is not like an undraftable card by a long shot. But it does tone the power level down a little.
Oh man, I remember I used to love using that card with Puffer Fist.
Ah,
That thing was,
yes.
I mean,
Yes.
that thing was just so incredibly freaking strong. Really toxic. Like for 4 mana, what you could do was just insane, right? That was just like 4 mana, you develop a minion, and then you just like ultra swipe consecrate them. It just completely bust expectations. So now now Pufferfist is not exactly what it used to be, and this card is not what it used to be as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And in exchange, I guess is a weird way to put it, but they buffed Zelag of the Abyss, which is the Demon Hunter Colossal card, and it was one that when it was released, we were pointing at it and we were like, "This card's an A. It is a Colossal card. It is an A tier. It is not a S plus tier like most of these are. Like, we don't know why it sucks so much compared to the other Colossals. Like, you'll take it. It's an A tier card. It's good. It's like Knight Captain. It's like it's an A tier card. It's a good card. It's like a Naga's A plus. This isn't even as good as a Naga, I think. This isn't even as good as a school teacher. Before, like, you have a problem, right? When like the card whose main goal is not like some weird combo, but whose main goal is just to be big and amazing when you play it out. And in the arena, it is not as good as like a regular epic card in school teacher.
It's so funny. Like you could tell in this patch, or you could joke that they looked at their mistake and they were like, "Oh no! Like every colossal does have to be amazing." So yeah, they buffed the Demon Hunter one. If you just look ahead a tiny bit, they buffed the Priest one.
The Priest
as well.
one was maybe the worst one. It was so bad. It's just it forces you to get healed basically and clears the opponent's board.
I would say in the previous meta, it was not bad. I say in the previous meta, the Priest one was better than the Druid one. The Druid one was like really tame.
Yeah, the Druid one was bad. So I think we actually rated the Druid one maybe the same as
the Druid was really tame. I think the
bad.
Priest one was better. I mean, like here's the thing. When do you see the Priest legendary the most? In other classes.
Yes.
Through like Phelan, through just random shit, right? Like random generation stuff. But face damage, health is supremely important nowadays. So important. So yeah, the behemoth that life steals, it's pretty great. Like well, it's pretty great as a normal card, pretty meh as a colossal, and now that has been buffed by a mana as well. Once again, Blizzard just saying we can't have a mediocre, and by mediocre I mean, by the most powerful cards in the game standards, we can't have a mediocre colossal.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? They're, like I said, they're colossals. They're not meant to be they're just meant to be literally the arena dominators, right? Like, that are playable and constructed. Like, these legendaries have to be so good that you just drop them, they're big, they do stuff, and in the arena, all this stuff kind of like matters. Like, there's nothing inherent about Zelag's design, for example. If you forget what the Demon Hunter legendary is, it's the one that deals random damage. Like, at the end of the turn, there's like 4 stalks that are 1/2s, and if they don't die, that by the end of the turn, then they deal like a damage, and then on the next turn, their damage gets buffed by 1. They deal 2 damage, and etc. And they got buffed by it starts out at 2 damage now. I think is that how it got buffed? Yeah, it starts out by being 2 damage instead of 1, which makes it a lot better because now half of the card essentially got doubled. But there's a reason why we rated it before like an A. Kolak we rated an A as well. But I will say this about Kolak. The Kolak win rates are higher than I expected. So, I mean, I've played with Kolak a number of times. I have not felt that it was terribly like different than what we rated it. But the win rates say something a little different. So I'm going to put an asterisk next to Kolak. Then what do we say? Okay, Gaia is only S instead of S+, but who cares? That's a S tier card. And Blackwater Behemoth, which is the rogue one, has not been buffed. And we rated an A. I haven't been tracking that one. But the Priest was the other one that was bad. Where is Priest?
Where is Priest?
Yeah, where is Priest? Oh no, sorry. Blackwater Behemoth is the Priest one. And that's the one that got buffed. My bad. Okay, so there were only 2. I take this back. There were only 2 that we rated. There were only 3 that we rated below S tier, and 2 of them got buffed because Blizzard was wrong about their balancing because they weren't S tier, and Kalak is the only one, and it has higher win rates than we expected. So, I'm not ready to say we're wrong about Kalak yet because I've used it a number of times and I haven't thought it was particularly good, but it's definitely got an asterisk on it.
I think part of the reason Kalak is decent is because Druid kind of just wins as long as they don't die. Like they're a great I win if I don't die class, and that Colossal just really helps. Right, it's a huge taunt with a body attached, and that also gives armor. Right, it's at minimum a giant taunt. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, and if you get it in the right circumstances, it wins you the game because the Kalak can't die or be hurt.
Yep. So sometimes it absolutely locks up the game. The other times it's like, well, how much defense were you expecting for that amount of mana? You weren't getting more than that, right? Like that's the absolute highest amount of defense you could get for the mana. It's just the other Colossals don't just give you that much and it's not all defense because I know the body can attack, and if the shell survives it's immune, blah blah blah, but it's mainly for defense. And the other Colossals are offensively, they put on so much pressure, but Druid never needed that.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't checked Kalak's win rates recently after Druid. I mean, Druid hasn't really fallen that far, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, Hunter had a nerf and buffs, multiple buffs, but one big nerf, and the nerf is to Dragonbane Shot. Dragonbane Shot, which was one of the lone bright spots for Hunter, is now 3 mana, which makes it unplayable because it's now a 3 mana card that deals 2 damage, and if you honorably kill it, you get another Dragonbane Shot for 3 mana in your hand. So it went from being bad for tempo to being unplayable for tempo.
Man, it's such a shame. I had quite a few decent runs with Dragonbane Shot, even for very aggressive ones. It's sort of like, okay, because you have to play the board for a little bit until you give up. And then once you give up the board, I'm like, okay, well, now I still have 2 damage, right? I never gave up my opportunity to choose between face damage and clearing the board. I just used it. Whatever, you can call it inefficient, but sometimes that's just exactly what you need, right? If I need, because the way to think about it is 2 mana for 2 damage is by the book inefficient, but if I'm using 2 mana to get rid of something like a 5/2, that's really efficient, right? That's incredibly efficient. So those are the situations that you want to more so focus on, and Hunters have always been a little bit awkward. Also, you do have pings and small damage, and sometimes you just need Dragonbane to finish that off.
Yep.
I really like the card.
It's also not super powerful or anything.
No,
they just made it
We
unplayable. We rated it as C to start. That's how not powerful the card was.
Yeah, because it really wasn't good. It was just useful.
Yeah.
Such a shame.
Yeah.
Damn.
That was a good card to have. But I mean, you could see why it could get problematic with combos in a constructed setting. Okay, but Hunter's got a couple of buffs as well. Actually, quite a lot of buffs, but they don't really affect Arena that much, except for one. So the first buff is the Harpoon Gun, which is a rare weapon. 3 mana, 3/2. After your hero attacks, Dredge, if it's a beast, reduces its cost by 2. It now reduces its cost by 3 instead of 2. This will have a minimum effect on Arena. I don't know about Constructed, but it's made a already amazing card. This is an amazing card. This is, I don't know, do we give it an A+ tier or a S tier? This is just like a really good card before, and it made it slightly better, which is not what you want to see from an arena perspective, but it really doesn't have that big of an impact. Yeah, it was an A. It may be an A+ now. It may still be an A. It doesn't matter. Like for a removal that's in a especially a rare removal in a class, like this is not an OP card, and it's still not an OP card. But the next card, this will be interesting. So Pet Collector used to be a 5-mana 3/3 Battlecry. Summon a beast from your deck that costs 5 or less. So it used to be a kind of playable 5-drop. It was never good unless you had a specific deck that just happened to set up for it. But it was also like kind of just fine, right? Because you're on average going to get what, like a 3-drop that's going to be like a 3/3 or a 3/4. So you spend 5 mana on a 3/3 and another 3/3, or maybe you get a little bit bonus, right? You take some RNG chances. Like it was a card that you draft and you play and you're okay with it. They gave a +1/+1 on the base. So now it's just overstated way more often than it's not. Like it's almost always overstated now, unless you get a 1-drop. So this is now a good card, Pet Collector, and it is also a common. So this has been a pretty big change in Hunter, and I mean you don't see it in the win rates because a lot of the other classes got a lot better, actually. But it is something to keep an eye out for. This is an impactful change to the Hunter if you decide to play Hunter in this meta, which you should.
Yeah, it's good. If you just look at the win rate, though, them losing Dragonbane Shot, I think, is huge.
Mm-hmm.
That was just a lot of flexibility. So making it up with the Pet Collector, and I would say it doesn't make up for Dragonbane Shot, you know? So
I think it's about the same.
I think it's about the same in terms of power level, but I think for the meta and for what they needed, Dragonbane, like
yeah.
they needed Dragonbane
They
Shot
do.
more than they need a Pet Collector, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, I would say in terms of just 1-for-1 power level, in terms of like what was like buffed and nerfed, sure. I think if you ask anybody who plays Hunter, what would you prefer? Like, would you prefer the old Dragonbane, or would you prefer like, you know, this the change to Pet Collector? I think it's Dragonbane every single time.
Alright, next up is Asheron Sabre, another Hunter card that got buffed. This used to be a 4-mana 3/3 that rushed. Death Rattle, put a Sunken Sabre in the bottom of your deck. The Sunken Sabre was a 4-mana 3/3 with rush. Death Rattle, summon a beast from your deck. So this was not a particularly arena-friendly card before. Now it is a 4-mana 4/3 rush. 4-mana 4/3 rushes are now definitely playable in the arena. Like, this is a fish. And yeah, it doesn't really have a second body. Its second body is hidden in your deck, and you have to actually, like, you know, dredge it up. But so it's nowhere near as good as a fish, but it is now a playable card, and it is a common card. So Hunters did get a little consistency in their drafts with this one.
Yep. Yeah, it's fine. I never liked the card that much. I think other people liked it more than me. But that's a huge difference. I mean, that's a 33% increase in the attack. And let's face it, the attack is really what matters for that thing.
Yeah.
So gigantic buff for the card. And it's really 2 buffs, right? Because it's buffing both of like the bodies that are involved.
Yeah, I mean the second body you'll rarely see, but
yeah. Well, depends on the dredge and everything. But if you want that, then yeah. Okay.
Yep. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was about to say I was always confused because how much did you like the card before? Like in our co-op, like we
rated it.
I was just like, I hate the card.
We rated it a D. So we do not like the card before, but now it's going to be like a C.
Sure, yeah, but even back then, I felt like you were kind of okay with the card. I thought it was trash. I don't get it.
I thought of it along the same levels of like a 3-mana 3/3 or something, right? With like a 4-mana 3/3 rush. instead of a 3-mana 3/3.
Okay. Yeah. I just don't get it, man. But it's a nice change. It was a needed change
Yeah.
for sure.
Like,
It was
whenever you have a
much
common
needed
card
change.
that is like terrible in the arena, like it wasn't an F, but it was also not really playable. Buffing it up to something that is playable just gives your deck so much more consistency. Like these are like Pet Collector went from a C to probably a B, if not B plus. Like that's really good for Hunter, and it's a class card. We don't care if class cards get to B plus at all. We don't even really care if class cards get to A. We're kind of like, okay, that's fine. So you're just taking cards that were not problematic before, and you are making them like a little bit better to match the power levels. Like Asheron Sabre, that's not an arena card. So I don't know what this is going to do in Constructed, but in Arena, it's just going to become usable, which is great. This is what you want to see. These are the buffs that are needed. All right, Priest, we talk about Blackwater being buffed. Blackwater got buffed by reducing its mana cost to 7. So now it's a 7 mana 8/10 that also generates a 1/4, and it forces everything on the board to attack it. And if the 1/4 doesn't die, everything you ever play will always attack this thing.
Yep.
It's like it got a lot better because that 8 mana versus 7 mana is a very big difference.
Just look at Miracle Growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how it's like if you're in trouble, something like a Miracle Growth or something like a Behemoth would really help you out. That one turn is absolutely crucial. And now you get to, it's the reverse, right? Like Miracle Growth, you could be struggling a little bit. You need to find some cards. You need that taunt. Okay, on turn 7, and then you draw all of your answers and you have a killer turn 8. Meanwhile, you just, now, well, first of all, you take a ton of face damage on turn 7. On turn 8, you let's say you manage to get the Ironbark Protector, right? 8 mana for an 8/8 taunt, and then you draw your cards, and you're like, oh, okay, I managed to draw my Flipper Friends, I managed to draw my good cards, but all you did was play an Ironbark on turn 8 while you got like completely demolished the previous turn, and then you die. So that's what's going to happen with the Behemoth. You are going to be able to play it. You're going to gain that life on turn 7.
Mm-hmm.
They can't kill you. They can't really ignore it. And you kind of just win past that point.
Like, it's such a big difference. Rated an A, it's probably going to be an S tier now. And that's
That's the
intention.
Yeah.
That is the intention. All right. So when we say S tier, it's still not as good as the other Colossuses. Don't get me wrong, because the other Colossuses aren't even S plus tier; they're S plus tier. We just didn't mark it as that because I really didn't want to keep going on with this tier list, like by making that distinction. Okay, Whirlpool is an epic card. It was 9 mana, now it's 8 mana. If you don't remember what this is, it's Twisting Nether. It also destroys all copies of it, no matter where they are. So it could be in your hand, it could be in your deck, but really, for arena purposes, pretty much Twisting Nether, which is 8 mana and an old school card before the power levels changed. So this being 9 mana was always a little like, this is to counter specific constructed stuff. This is fine at 8 mana in arena.
I will say, in these days, you do see some like pretty powerful class cards, and like you could be just removing, because good classes at high wins, they have a decent amount of class cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could just be removing that other Snowfall Guardian, right? You could be removing that other Inquisitor. Who knows?
And, if they played a discovered Onyxia, you could be removing the Onyxia they drafted.
Of course, that's how it works.
All good things. And in case you're wondering, it disproportionately affects good cards over bad cards, because you're less likely to have doubles of bad cards because you'll pick away from them. So, yeah. All right. Shadowcloth Needle was 2 mana, now it's 1 mana. This is a card that is the priest weapon. It's 1 mana, 03. After you cast a shadow spell, deal 1 damage to all enemies, lose 1 durability. It's still not arena viable.
Very sad.
Yep. They buffed Serpent Wig. So it used to be 1 mana, give a minion +1/+1, and if you had played a Naga while holding it, you kind of get it back. Now it's 1 mana +1/+2 with the ability to get it back, which makes it super good. It's an epic card, you're not going to see it a lot, but it was always, like, I think, like, decent. We rated Serpentwig at C before. And +1/+2, it just got, like, I don't know, almost 50% more powerful.
Yeah, it's quite good. I think this was a card in which I, s- I don't know how many times I saw it, right? But in the amount of times I did see it, it was fine. It was okay. I think it was around like a C tier. Like you could find places to use it. And I usually got like one copy of it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not getting the other copy, but I'm okay with that. Like that flexibility.
Yeah. Not breaking the game, right? When you buff a C tier card, even if you buff it by 50%, you're still not getting to A tier. You're getting to like B plus tier at best. All right, now we're
I'm
gonna
not
get to
saying that
Rogue.
this is exactly B plus tier. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you get to B plus tier at most, right? This was probably a low C. It got buffed to, and it didn't get buffed 50%. It got buffed almost 50% because buffing health is not as good as buffing attack, due to the initiative usage. But okay. Rogue. Now we're at Rogue. Rogue got a whole bunch of buffs. If you're wondering why Rogue all of a sudden jumped from, it was doing fine. I think it was like at 50% or something, maybe 49 or 50%. It was doing fine. And all of a sudden jumped to essentially 54% win rate. It's because of this. Tooth of Nefarian used to be 3 mana, deal 3 damage, honorable kill, discover a spell from another class. Now Tooth of Nefarian is 2 mana, deal 3 damage, honorable kill, discover a spell from another class. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. Tooth of Nefarian is absolutely absurdly good. It was really good. Now it is absurdly good.
Yeah, that is unfairly good. The mana cost before was acceptable, but you did have to find a time to play it. You had to find a time to play it, and sometimes you could play turn 3, sometimes you couldn't. And now that it is 2 mana for a class that really thrives by being, by pushing the tempo, by being mana efficient, this is just really freaking good. Because one of the drawbacks of using Tooth before was you do slow down a little, and then maybe you make it up with a spell, maybe you don't. And now, as long as you get a decent spell, you come out positive because you don't have to make up for that 1 mana anymore.
Yep. We rated it as C plus before. This one's definitely an A tier now. And like, again, it's kind of fine to have A tier cards. That's just what class cards are. Class cards are generally cards that you would normally expect to see, and then like you get an extra card out of it for no reason, right? That's pretty much what this is. And so, it is what it is. This is not a actually problematic card in the meta, but it is premium now. Now you go to SI7 Smuggler. I have had to take so many SI7 Smugglers. I just give. I think rogues just have a lot of bad cards, and so you end up taking it. SI7 Smuggler used to say 3 mana, 1/3, Battlecry, summon a random 0-cost minion, upgraded for each SI7 card you have played this game. You have probably played somewhere between 0 and 1 SI7 cards in your arena game by the time you want to play this, but still a 0 mana minion is like a 1/1, which is, it makes this card terrible, but it's technically a thing. So if it's next to totally unplayable cards like mines and whatever, you're still taking it. Now they upgraded it so that you summon a random 1-cost minion, and that gets upgraded every time you play an SI7 card. That is huge, because random 1-cost minions these days are pretty damn good. There are so many 1/3s, there are so many 2/2s. Like, 1-cost minions are in a good place right now, and if you can upgrade it just once, it becomes a 2-cost minion, and this becomes a super good card if that happens. And the more of these you see, because they got buffed, the more SI7 cards you'll have in your deck. I'm not saying this is
Yeah,
an A tier card, but it's like like at this point, this card is at the point where it's like Yeti level, if not better.
it's pickable. It's definitely pickable. These kind of cards are always interesting, right? Because the better they are, the it's like by them getting a little bit better, they actually get much
Mm-hmm.
better
Mm-hmm.
because then you are able to take the first one, and once you are able to take the first one, you're able to take the second one. What and also once you're able to take the first one, maybe that questionable pick between two things, but one is an an SI agent or whatever. Um, that makes a huge difference, right? And then it cascades like after you pick that one and then you see another one of these. So it's huge. I don't like, don't go into a rogue draft and say like, oh man, I'm going after these specifically. You probably won't get them, but it'll change one of your drafts every now and again as
Mm-hmm.
rogue because independently at the start you're like, okay, now this was the pick and it wasn't before. And then in that universe, in the previous meta, you might have had the exact same choices. You always picked away from it, and it was the correct pick every single time. And now, because you picked the first one, you should pick the second one. Because you picked the second one, you should pick the other SI card, and then you should pick the third one after
Mm-hmm.
that. So your decisions are very, very different, even though the relative power level of the card didn't, it didn't get like mega buffed.
Yeah. And this card has become pickable because it is now a 3 drop. Like, it's not a good 3 drop, but it is now a 3 drop. And that is a thing. Like, it is a better than a 3 mana 3/3 3 drop. Okay. Next up is a Walpaw Knoll. Walpaw Knoll used to be a 6 mana 3/5 rush, which costs 1 less for each card you've added to your hand from another class. So it was kind of difficult to consistently play. Wasn't particularly like good. Nobody really liked them, and it was just not a good thing. Now it has been changed to be 5 cost, so it's 1 cost less, and it has 1 more attack. So it's actually gotten to become very playable. Like, even if you don't reduce it at all, it would be a good card in the arena. 5 mana 4/5 rushes, totally good. We've seen a couple of these before in the past. They've always been good. And if you can reduce it by adding cards to your hand, and you can get this out on turn 4, on turn 3, it's game winning.
Yep.
So, like, I'm gonna actually click on this card. I just wanna see. So the deck win rate for this card hovered at around 50%, and since the patch, it is now at around 60%. Just rough numbers. Give you an idea of. I mean, rogues have also gotten 3% better. So this is only responsible for like 6% of that difference or something. But still, that's a lot. Okay, now Test Greymane got changed. It was 8 mana. It's now 7 mana. It's an 8 mana 6/6 that says battle card. You play every card from another class you played this game. Now it's 7 mana. I have no idea how it affects the arena. I'm not going to dig into that one. And finally, the last rogue card that was buffed was Hinge Clan Burglar. You guys know the Hinge Clan Burglar. He is a 4 mana 4/3 pirate battlecry. Discover a spell from another class. He is very good. He did not need to be buffed. He's now 4 mana 4/4.
Yeah, man, that was really unnecessary. I don't know why that was done. I look, I don't understand enough about constructed to analyze that change, but for arena, that thing is a menace now. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. Because it was definitely really understated before, and now I'm not saying a 4/4 is great, but it definitely passes by a lot of breakpoints, right? I don't have to tell you that 4 is more than 3. Deep analysis here. I really don't like it for arena, but what are you gonna do?
Yep. I mean, this is now a problematic card for Arena. I'm not saying it needs to be banned or whatever, but this is going to have its offering odds reduced probably when they nerf Rogue, because it's a standout card that is a little too high, and it's doing a little too much. I don't know what we had it as before rated, but I'm pretty sure this is an S tier card now. Because you're not just discovering a card, you're discovering a spell.
Yeah, it absolutely has to be.
Yeah, and it's a common card. For common cards and rare cards, you don't want them to be S tier. You really don't, even for class cards. If it's like an epic and it's S tier, fine. Like, you're just not going to see it often enough. You could just treat it almost as a legendary. You're not going to see that class often enough. It just won't feel bad, right? When it like totally blows you out of the water. But for Henchclan Burglar, every rogue you face is going to do something with Henchclan Burglar, and it's all going to add up. This is one of those cards. It is the second best card in Rogue right now by win rate, only behind Bootstrap Sunkeneer, which is a sap, the 5-mana 4/4 sap. And that one's epic. So you don't see it often at all. Remember, epics are seen at about 1/4 the rate as commons. So, and to give you an idea, they nerfed most of the cards they nerfed by about 15% offering rate. So in order to nerf a common card to be epic, you need to nerf by 75% offering rate, and they did 15. So we're so far apart between like what the power levels of these cards should be. So yeah. So I think Henchclan Burglar is the first like truly problematic card that exists. I think Tooth and the Fairy is also problematic, but Henchclan Burglar really does take the cake, because for Tooth, reducing 1 mana, it's not exactly the same as making a 4-mana 4/4 kind of on curve, because you're not playing the Tooth on curve most likely, so the mana matters a lot less than something like a minion. Okay, so that's Rogue. So if you're wondering why Rogue is super good now, they buffed it. Tooth, huge buff. SI7 Smuggler, underrated buff. And Henchclan Burglar, huge buff. So Rogue is a little problematic now, and we're going to see it hit. And if you were... my money would be on it being hit on Tooth and definitely on Henchclan. It would just make sense. Finally... we have Warlocks that received some buffs, and Warlock is a relevant class now, and it's a relevant class partly because they buffed the adjustments buffed it by like 3% win rate, and now this buffed it again. I didn't see a lot of people talking about this, but these are pretty big buffs. So the first one is the Strakkiss Cultist, which used to be a 3-mana 2/3, and like, if you just remember this, when we were doing the card reviews, we just went through Warlock and we're like, this is bad in Arena, this is bad in Arena, this is bad in Arena, this is a terrible set for Arena, what the hell are Abyssal Curses supposed to do? Everything is bad, nothing is playable. Ooh, Warlocks, like, they had good cards before, so that they probably weren't going to tank to the bottom, but this is going to be a rough set. Well, they kind of just went down and turned these cards into actual normal cards that you would expect. So now, Strakkiss Cultist, instead of being a 3-mana 2/3, is a 3-mana 3/4. Like what normal cards are supposed to be. Similar, Drag Below used to be 4 mana, deal 4 damage to a minion, give your opponent an Abyssal Curse. Now it's 3 mana, deal 4 damage to a minion, give your opponent an Abyssal Curse. Asheron Scavenger used to be, this one moved less. This one, because it's not an Abyssal Curse card. It used to be a 3-mana 3/4, now it's a 2-mana 2/3. And same with Sunken Scavenger. Used to be a 3-mana 3/4, now it's a 2-mana 2/3. But here, Blood Scent Vilefin used to be a 4-mana 4/4, and now it's a 3-mana 3/4. So they went down the list and they made a bunch, like 3 cards. 3 cards they made from being either unplayably undertempoed or just regular undertempoed, and they made them into totally normal on-curve cards.
Yep.
Cool. So that's the patch. Patch 23.2.2. These are all the changes. Know them because they are already live in your arenas. Okay, so let's talk about legendaries. We're gonna end on a final. We're gonna end on a topic. It's probably a little big topic. We're only gonna talk about one part of this topic. We may come back to it in a future Lightforge podcast. But we're just gonna talk about offering rates on legendaries. And I wanted to talk about this topic because what we're doing, what we're seeing the dev team do, and what I've always been a proponent of doing when I say like nerf arena cards down to the ground, is it actually costs a lot of resources if you actually want to change stats for cards in arena, and it confuses people who have seen these cards elsewhere that all of a sudden like Flame Strike is all of a sudden 8 mana instead of 7. Like what? It all of a sudden deals 4 damage instead of 5, huh? It costs a lot of resources, and it has a huge downside in connecting arena with the rest of Hearthstone and just people's expectations. So instead, usually when things get nerfed, they get banned or they have offering rates nerfed. And bans usually happen if a card is super absurdly powerful. There's really not much you can do about it, and neutral. Or it's just super unfun to see, and it doesn't matter how much you nerf it, it will never be fun to see or use this card like Flappy Bird, or that it will just be so much more unfun to receive than it is to give, that we're taking out of the arena. But a lot of other cards get nerfed, and they get nerfed by their offering rates. And this dev team has kind of committed, or has at least tested out, doing it even on neutral cards that don't affect class balance, such as Mothership, such as Gangplank, such as a Knight Captain. So they've only moved it a little. Gangplank went down like 35-40, and the other two went down like 15%. So we're not even making them go up one step in rarity yet, right? Like the rare cards are still not even close to being epic cards. The common cards are not really rare cards, but if they do more, they will probably get there, and maybe they should. So with that being set up, I want to talk about what legendary cards are, especially like neutral legendaries. Because the only difference between a legendary card and a non-legendary card is the offering rate. And the offering rate of a legendary card is about half of that of an epic card, which is about half of that of a rare card, which is about half of that of a common card. It's all very easy to remember now. This has not always been true in arena history. They've messed with it quite a number of times, but for the last year plus, it's been like this. And I like the system, because as cards get more complicated, as cards get more swingy, and as cards get more bullshitty, they generally go up in rarity. And so you see them less. So maybe it's not the end of the world if Flame Strike is allowed to be in the game. But if it's an epic, oh my god, that makes it feel so much better. Because I don't see it every single game. Because I don't want to get Flame Striked every single game. That everybody has agreed since the beginning of Hearthstone was not fun. But since they made Flame Strike epic, even though it deals 5 damage now instead of 4, and is so much more powerful than it was before, people don't really complain about Flame Strike anymore. Part of it is the power creep, but part of it is really just that once you make something epic, it's allowed to be more powerful. It's allowed to be more swingy. And legendaries are the least seen cards in the game, so they're allowed to be what they are. Now, they've basically created another category now where they actually nerfed the legendary offering rate for, I think, the first time ever in Raid Boss and Nexia. But they didn't nerf it for Ibis. They didn't nerf it for Sneeds, which are the other two problematic cards. Sneeds having win rate above Raid Boss and Nexia most of the time. I don't know if it's the case right now. Okay, Raid Boss and Nexia took over the crown from Sneeds in this patch. But Sneeds was higher, and they go kind of back and forth. And of course, Ysera was also not nerfed, and that one's always high. But if you've heard me rant enough about Ysera, you know that I think Ysera is actually just not a good card, and that the win rates are being heavily skewed towards average players. So as a good player, I don't care about it as much. But Ibis, Goliath, and Raid Boss and Nixia are game wreckers, no matter what your skill level. So the question that I would propose, and perhaps you could take a first stab at this, is how many legendaries do you want, or like cards that are at roughly this level, right? Like, let's say they're not going to nerf or ban Raid Boss Onyxia or Ysera or Goliath or Ibis. How often do you want to see these cards?
Yeah, look, for those of you guys who are used to the old days, I'm talking like, when Trump is putting out his guides for Arena, back when Crip and Hafu and all the cool kids, everybody was playing Arena, people were still figuring stuff out. Legendaries were actually legendaries. There was no way to discover legendaries, first of all. There was just no way. Tyrion was by far the best legendary. And for quite a while, if you guys remember, legendaries sucked. You didn't want legendaries. You always wanted, we said this for years, it's like you want a true silver champion over a legendary pick. Now, did you want true silver champion over Tyrion? No, you wanted the Tyrion at that time over True Silver Champion. It's funny because today you'd want True Silver over Tyrion again, I would say.
Oh yeah, always.
It's like a crappy 8-drop. But at that time, it was like, oh yeah, you didn't want legendary. It's like, did you want to be presented with like Baron? Did you want to be presented with then like a Bran Bronzebeard, right? Like you didn't want any of these crappy legendaries. So back at those times, you saw legendaries rarely, and I would say you wanted to see more actual powerful legendaries, but legendaries as a category sucked. You were pretty much unhappy with a legendary pick, unless you were playing Druid and then you're like, oh, whew, I got a legendary and then I got Cenarius. Okay, that's good. I didn't just like get all of these crappy legendaries, crappy conditional constructed legendaries. And nowadays, legendaries win. On average, your legendary will win you the game. And so if we're talking about the average legendary now, which if not a colossal, and by the way, there's too many ways to discover, generate, whatever.
Yeah, let's set aside the discover thing for now. So, let's just talk about drafting. Like, let's assume they fix discover one way or the other.
Right. If you're just talking about drafting a legendary, I'm okay with you not being able to draft a legendary until you sort of like one in every 5 decks has a legendary, something like that. I am totally okay with that. Now, of course, look, we've talked about it. The fix isn't drafting. I would love to increase the amount of drafted legendaries if we could significantly decrease the amount of discovered legendaries, whether it's dragons or colossals, all of that stuff. That's my preferred method. That's not what we're talking about now. So don't be like, oh, Merps, like, what are you doing? That doesn't fix the problem. I understand. I know. So if we're just talking about then drafting, let's decrease it then. I think it's one of those things where it is too much right now, overall. And if we're not going to touch the discover pool, which we have found it is harder, right? And they're more willing to touch the draft offering rates of everything. Sure, cut it significantly. You just don't get legendaries, period, almost, because you don't whiff on legendaries anymore. It is supremely rare for you to completely whiff on a legendary. Like,
most of the times legendaries are the equivalent of, let's say, if legendaries didn't exist in the game, of you getting like a caverns or something.
Yeah,
like your top class card.
Like these days, you know, if you get a legendary pick and you don't get an Ibis, you don't get let's say a Nixia, you don't get your Colossal, you're just like, oh, okay, I'll take a Runthack level legendary, right? Which is still supremely good. I just don't like that. I don't like the fact that sort of your fallback and your average legendary is like a Runthack level kind of legendary. So yeah, sure. If that's what we have to do, let's decrease it. Like once out of every 5 runs. It doesn't matter. Like it's if you enjoy seeing legendaries, oh hell, you're gonna see a lot of legendaries in your game still.
Yeah. So I want to say that I think you agree with this, is that the problem is not that legendaries are all good now. That is not a problem in and of itself. The problem is that effectively good legendaries now show up in decks way more often than they used to before. Not just like twice as much, but like 8 times as much, 10 times as much. But it's actually a good thing that all the legendaries are being brought up to the levels of the highest legendaries, in that now you actually have choices when you're picking potentially, and now legendaries feel legendary, right? Like, it's when a legendary pick shows up and you're like, oh no, like that's a terrible feeling. So
Yeah, that's not good design.
yeah, like, so I like that the legendaries, one, are better than regular cards for the most part. They've gotten more consistent about that, and two, that their power levels are overall more consistent as a base, right? That's what Arena uses, just the neutral base, not any kind of synergies, not any kind of particular meta stuff. And they've kind of upped it. That I appreciate. But it does mean that we see too many legendaries, I think. We see right now, by my math, over 1.5 legendaries per deck, just drafted naturally into the deck itself.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, less than 2, but over 1.5. And that is a lot. I don't know about reducing that to 0.2, which is what you were proposing, but definitely should be reduced a bit. I think they went with this kind of rate so that you can expect a legendary in your deck, right? You will more often than not have a legendary in your deck. And they thought that created, a better kind of like gameplay thing. But keep in mind that if we break because all the legendaries are now all S tier or really close to S tier, as they should be, you also really don't want a lot of those cards in a game, period, because you can't, like, what do you do when a Colossus comes out? Like, you just lose the game like 95% of the time, no matter what anybody has done before that. So if the top legendaries are to remain in the game, and I think that's the idea, because they've nerfed Raid Boss Onyxia quite a bit. Raid Boss Onyxia now shows up less than half the time that like Ysera shows up, for example. Like, Raid Boss Onyxia is in 1.4% of decks, Ysera is in 3.7, Goliath is in 3.7. So that offering rate was really big for Raid Boss Onyxia. So if you're taking the Raid Boss Onyxia hint as these kinds of big giant swings should not be in the game that much, this is what I was talking about, we're creating another category of like ultra legendaries. Not just legendaries, not just S tier, but ultra legendaries that are S plus tier. Like, and if we're going to nerf cards to be like that, well, right now, Raid Boss Onyxia, by my math, probably appears. Raid Boss Onyxia, he's always drafted when he's offered. So first you divide it by 3. Let's start with, just to make the numbers easier to work with, 1.6? Does that make the numbers easier? Does that go into 3? No, let's do 1.8. So then becomes 0.5, and then you make it to be about a third, a little over a third, so 0.2. So Raid Boss Onyxia right now, a drafted Raid Boss Onyxia shows up about as often after the offering rate adjustment to it. So only in the recent games. As much as Merps wants to nerf all legendaries too. And that actually aligns perfectly, right? Because your whole point, Merps, is that all the legendaries are out of control. And the amount of times that you should be comfortable seeing a totally out of control card destroy the whole game is about once in every 5 decks. And that's what they made Raid Boss Onyxia seed. So, I don't know if we need to go exactly that far, but it shows the same alignment of thinking, right? Like, when the developer sat there and said, this is a card we don't even really want in Arena, but we also don't want to just start banning legendaries. That feels like not just a slippery slope, but like definitely like kind of a line drawing problem, in that a lot of legendaries are kind of ridiculous. So they went with the nerf offering rate and creating this extra bucket. And this extra bucket is effectively what Merps intuitively thought that a more controlled setting would be. So I think the devs are in alignment with us, or we're in alignment with the devs on thinking what would make the most fun game. And the difference now is all the rest of these legendaries, right? Like, because a lot of them are still out of control, almost as out of control as Raid Boss and Ixia, like Goliath, like Ivus. And if you're talking about 3-win players, like Ysera. So yeah. So I think it's interesting that, by the way, this is not scripted or anything. I just kind of made Merps give an answer on the spot. So it is interesting that the answer comes out the same as the current offering rate of Raid Boss and Ixia. I would probably go with 1 and 3 on average, 1 and 3 of your decks, just to keep the 3 theme in Arena, and because I don't mind legendaries, I think, as much as Merps does. But yeah, the current rate of 1.8 essentially, of 1.8 per 1.7 maybe per deck it's too much. And this isn't a new thing. It's been like this for a while, and it has not been good for the Arena to do this. I always think we've been playing a lot of Diablo 2. I'm gonna segue this. If you watch Merps' streams, he's been streaming a lot of Diablo 2. I'm all sometimes on there. I play Diablo 2 almost every single night of the last, since the ladder started, so the last two something weeks, 2.5 weeks. When I'm not playing, I'm actively trading. Like, this is a good time. Hardcore ladder, it's great. I didn't even play that much Diablo 2 Resurrected when it first came out, but with Hardcore ladder. Anyway, the point is we played a lot of Diablo 2. And I always think to the early part of the ladder and or the untwinked. I love untwinked. I'm playing ladder now, but like my bread and butter is untwinked. And the best parts, the best feelings is whenever a unique drops. Like, you're always excited, right? Especially if you're untwinked because your other stuff suck. But even if you are like in the normal ladder system and you can get, better equipment, it's the early ladder. You can't get the best equipment yet. Uniques generally matter. And if you're just leveling through, uniques sometimes just matter for like a little bit. Like, maybe I can use it for a few levels or like 10 or 20 levels and I'll have to ditch it eventually. But the feeling that I get when I see an unidentified unique item pop up is instantly, oh! And yeah, sure, like a bunch of times they're crap, but a lot of times they're usable, and sometimes like they'll set you up, right? You can sell it for so much forum gold and get super set up, and that's a good feeling. Like, that's a good design. Now, it's better design for Diablo 2 than it is for a card game, but you want that feeling in a draft. You want when a legendary pick to come up to be like, oh my god. Like, I won the lottery, kind of, right? But not so rare that you actually have to win the lottery to get it to happen, because it's a game, we want you to feel good. You don't want it to be like once you go over the line of 1, then you feel like you're entitled. You feel like you're entitled to 1 legendary. And if you don't get a legendary, like, you're averaging 1.7 or something. If you don't get a legendary in your draft, and oftentimes you don't, because it's 1.7 on average, there's a lot of zeros factored into it, because there's quite a few drafts that I'm sure we've all, either been on the receiving end of or been drafting, where you get like 3 legendaries. And so when you get 0, which is not an infrequent percentage of time, I feel like cheated. I'm like, where's my legendary? Like, even if it's not a good one, I didn't even get a shot at a legendary. And that just turned something that should have been this really good feeling positive thing into something that is not a really good feeling positive thing, and instead a negative thing when you don't have it. So from a game design perspective, like on the feeling part in the draft, I think they really messed up by increasing the legendary offering rates. Now, within the game itself, I don't want to call it a mess up, it's just the direction. They made the game more swingy and the game more whatever, and as a good player, of course, you don't want to see that. So obviously, I'm on the side of, less crazy legendaries, but just from a draft perspective, like, I feel like there's so much that gets lost when you raise the rate to be more than 1. Like, I would want it to be less than half. So Merp says 0.2 essentially. Like, I don't know if we need to go down to 0.2, but I think half should be a cap. You want it so that you feel really good whenever you see a legendary. All right, and they've accomplished that by making the legendaries all kind of really good. Out of 3 choices, you're going to get 1 that's really good. So they've already accomplished that, which is good. But now they need to make it rarer to make it feel really good. when you get the legendary, instead of just bad when you don't get the legendary. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on feeling good and game design and the legendary in Arena.
I think that's fair.
All right. Well, we've talked for a long time. Actually, this went on for longer than I thought. So we're gonna talk some more about Diablo, but we could do that next week.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, we'll do that next week. Next week will be a Diablo stream. We'll go back to being the Hellforge podcast as we talk about Diablo Immortal, which is launching after next weekend, and we've been doing in the latter season. But yeah. Okay. Let me give a shout out before we leave to our patrons at patreon.com/grinninggoat. Thank you guys so much for supporting us. And until next week, this is Oddwicta.
This is Merp. See you guys.